Hey, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hanging On to Hope podcast.
I'm Brenda J.
And I'm Karen Wonder.
And we are HangingOnToHope.org.
This podcast is intended as educational and is not psychological or medical advice. Always consult a professional when needed, and we disclaim any liability in connection with the instruction, information, or advice given.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hanging On to Hope podcast. This is Brenda J. Today, we have Reverend Dr. Sanghoon Yoo on the podcast. Pastor Yoo is founder of the Faithful City, TFC, and led ministries and social services for over 2 decades in the Phoenix metropolitan area. Pursuing recovery from his traumatic season, he encountered the trauma-informed care movement and founded the Arizona Trauma-Informed Faith Coalition, AZTIFC, with exponential growth. He was a founding board member of the Arizona ACE Adverse Childhood Experiences Consortium, where he chairs the Interfaith Committee. With AZIFC, he organizes statewide conferences, regional and national meetings, and develops professional field collaboration with various societal sectors. He also offers trauma-informed care training, organizational and systemic change consultation, and trauma-transformed discipleship. Recently, TFC launched the Creating Communities of Belonging project with a grant award by the Maricopa County Department of Public Health to train faith communities for trauma-informed care-based substance use prevention. Dr. Yoo organized the first annual Weave and Cleave conference in May, recognizing 11 faith-based organizations for their Belonging Community Project training completion. In addition, he is co-managing the faith-based community, PACE's Connection, and sharing the Faith Committee at Campaign for Trauma-Informed Policy and Practice, CTIPP, to advance the movement with national leaders and colleagues. Ooh.
That's a long introduction.
So welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome to the show. This is Karen. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me. Today, we'll talk about trauma-informed care.
Continuing with part 3.
So much good information out there. It's so encouraging to me. In your material, the triune model explains how the brain is broken down into the executive state, emotional state, and survival state. Can you explain in a simple way what are the functions of each?
Right. So triune model means that we dissect brain, in this case, 3 parts. One is the brainstem, which is a lower brain, just like on the neck, right? And then the next part is the limbic system, which also has a very small portion called amygdala. And then the upper part is third part. We call this prefrontal cortex or prefrontal lobe, which is the most important for human being as an executive function. So, which means that the brainstem is lowest the brain and it takes care of the signal of the safety. So the first thing is that, am I safe or not? So every information comes to the brainstem first. So we always checking out the safety. And if it is safe and then pass it, then limbic system checking out, do I belong here? Am I accepted? Am I loved? Or am I rejected, abandoned? Nobody likes me. So if I feel unsafe and my limbic system feels like I'm not accepted, then what? The amygdala is going to in charge. And so it blocks everything, the pathway to my executive function, which has my creativity, logical discussion, empathy, and you name it, as a kind of human function, right? So which means I become a trauma brain and survival responses. So we call this amygdala hijack. So my brainstem and limbic system say, this is not safe. You don't belong here. And what? You fight or run or you just freeze, right? You flock. So that's the kind of the brain function. But if you feel safe and you are loved, then what happens? Then, the gate is wide open to the upper brain. So I can be more functional with the creativity, logical thinking, educational process, or pour out my empathy to listen to somebody. So this is very important. This is how God designed us.
Feel safe and loved, and that's what you're trying to provide with your communities and all your that you're helping in with your programs.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't work when you say, what's wrong with you? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you say what's wrong with you, it's more like, you think about it. Why do you do this? Right? Then my upper brain is not ready to think about it.
Yeah.
So we say this, remember this, connection before correction.
Yeah.
And then I used to say this, I always say this, I'm pastor and I'm trained to love somebody by correction rather than connection.
Yeah.
Because we love truth, we know truth, we teach truth. Somebody doesn't know truth, we need to teach them, right? That's my job.
Yeah.
Wow. With my trauma, with my deep engagement with God, and I found Jesus came to connect,
Yeah.
not to condemn. That's John 3:16 and 17.
Yeah.
Who did that connection before correction? That's Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a revolutionary revelation that to me that I need to receive his unconditional love without any condition instead of trying to analyze and think about and correct myself. And then I need to do that love to others. And I even bring the John chapter 8 when woman in the adultery caught. This exactly shows how the science works because there's a Bruce Perry's regulate, relate, reason model based on this triune development, traumatology, bottom-up approach. But that's what exactly Jesus did only 2,000 years ago. Because when the woman was here, Jesus kicked out all the accusers. And then Jesus made the physiological safety to her, although she did the right thing. She was about to be stoned. It doesn't matter. Your safety is most important first to minister her. So she made the safety first. And then she said, I don't condemn you either. You belong to me. So she was a safety first, right? And then she was accepted and belong. And then Jesus said what? Sin no more.
Yeah.
So and then reason part coming in. Instead, woman, you didn't know? Let's look at the Bible. This is a law and you did this. You deserve to die. That's what we try to do. So we try to reason first. And then if you do behave well, you are accepted, you are safe. That's how it works. But when traumatized person cannot control himself or herself, what we need to do is what Jesus did, is that we need to put out the safety first for our love and acceptance, and then let them have a time and space to have enough energy and resilience to really think about what happened and how can they cope with it.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful example that to picture Jesus doing it, having safety being the priority for her.
Yeah. And then the Bible says the greatest of these is love. And it's interesting how love is an emotion. So it would be part of the amygdala, but the actions of safety and people connectedness and people, that is love. And so that's the one emotion that brings us out of the amygdala hijack. So it's there's a spiritual aspect of this that's kind of unexplainable almost.
Definitely.
Wonderful. Jesus is incredible.
Yeah.
Amen for that.
Yeah, that's why I love the combination of all this together. It makes so much sense. And that's why, to me, the whole evangelical approach of fire and brimstone doesn't work either. Like telling people they're going to hell is just going to cause reaction and it's not going to cause any kind of connection.
So in your material, the predictive brain process is introduced. Can you explain the predictive process theory?
Yeah, so that's the thing, the triad model talk about that brainstem and the limbic system and prefrontal cortex, they working together. But if there's nothing happen, then brainstem and limbic stem doesn't work. No, it's always processing the data because the brain always observe the things and then process it to interpret what it looks like, what it is about. Because based on the data in the past, brain gonna interpret, right? This is safe and am I love it? And then brain gonna be, oh, this is good place. Let's just play the game. They're gonna do all the executive function with the all good hormones gonna be pumping up. But the brain recognize this as unsafe and not lovely situation. Then we call this in the cortisol, the hormone gonna coming out, and then it's blocked my executive function, and then I'm gonna go to the typical amygdala hijack of the fight, flight, freeze, or flock. And so the important thing is the brain constantly interpret what's going on, what happened. And that's why, although you try to help somebody with love, if you are misunderstood by brain system or there's some kind of a unintentional trigger happened, right? Then suddenly the person can be reactionary and then they can be a very survival response. And because the brain recognizes this as oh, I interpret this as a very unsafe and traumatic situation. That's a re-traumatization. So it's very, very important. What does it mean? That it's very important when you provide safety, right? It needs to be consistent or constant. So again, we say that unconditional love and with a constant care. That's the major one of the problems because we love to help somebody one time and that's it. Oh yeah, you're good, right? Bye. Then that doesn't work for the people who are struggling long-term recovery of the trauma because what they need is that maybe very small help, just being with them together, but it needs to be constant. So their brain recognizes you as a very safe person, then you really build an amazing foundation of a trauma healing for the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Notice for me, I try to hold on to that safety when I felt safe with that person because people are so unpredictable and you're right. They're not safe all the time. So I remember that safety that I felt that time. And then I try to hold on to that because people aren't consistently safe. I completely get what you're saying.
Yep.
And so what you provide is that consistency.
Yeah, so that's very important. We need to train people then how you can be consistent, and consistent doesn't have to be pressure. Because if I say constant and consistent, people think, wow, I cannot do that, and what if somebody asks me that, can you pay my rent? All the things. But well, I didn't say you need to be Santa Claus, 24/7, 365 days. It's very simple. Just to be regular, okay? You just even text, how are you doing today, once a week for 6 months. I always say that gonna change the relationship. But
that makes so much sense. So the predictive brain process, your body's going to automatically from past and other events is going to act the same way. So with consistent safety and security, you can heal.
Because we call this is a limbic revision. Your limbic system has a stamp on it, right? Oh, Pastor Sanghoon show up. Oh my gosh, I'm scared, right? But because I had a bad Asian pastor before. No, I'm teasing. But anyway, but it can happen actually. I happened sometime in somebody focused on me, some perpetrator in the past, because of what I said. But it's not intentional. But the thing is that, and then the person is very in the survival mode. But when I provide a different way, right? Instead of punishing, judging, or, all kind of abusive way, when I provide that sweet and hard, the caring and loving, providing safety, then the stamp is not going to change immediate. But there's some, whoa, I didn't expect this, right? I expected more abuse, but I didn't expect this, the warm caring. And then the more it gonna be continued, the stamp gonna be gone away. And then we call this the limbic revision. So we're gonna have a different stamp that, oh, this person is different from my past experience. This person is safe, but it takes time. And then once it's established, actually you have a great foundation of the safe relationship and healing and resilience. This is really important because that's why you can see people need a counseling or special knowledge or skill set or pill and all kind of things, but it's very simple just to try to be consistent and constant with certain behavior of caring with somebody long time. And they can bring amazing healing impact.
Yeah, something that simple, but very important. In your material, it states resilience has been defined as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or even significant sources of threat. What are the characteristics of resilience and why is resilience so important? Any more you'd want to add to that when healing from abuse and trauma?
Yeah, so let me talk about this because my material talking about things about hope, coping skills, right? Strong relationship. And even I talk about the post-traumatic growth, which comes with a lot of things, even the developing your spirituality. But I make a distinction between resilience and success because we are so much a success-oriented society. Success comes with a goal accomplishment. So, oh, I have a goal for 6 months and I'm going to do this goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to achieve it and I'm going to be success. Resilience is different. Resilience is recharging my energy every day, whether I'm going to have a successful day or I have a very disappointing or day of a failure. Doesn't matter. I learn how to recharge myself again, and then I'm going to face tomorrow. That's the resilience. And
Yeah.
we need to impart resilience, which I get this from the spirit of a resurrection of Jesus. I die, but I rise again.
Yeah.
It's not just about going flying high, 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 That's a success model, and which is dominant. And we think all or nothing. If you don't get the gold medal, if you don't have a YouTube hitting, 1 million, your life is meaningless. It doesn't work that way. Trauma has a tough journey ahead, a long time. You need to build down instead of focusing on success, which might bring more anxiety. You need to bring more resilience, which must bring more about steady faith and hope and constant love. So out of this, you build the strengths that can be really resilient. We say resilience is not bouncing back. People think that way, but resilience is bouncing forward. There's no point to go bouncing back. We need to continue on how to bouncing forward. Whatever happened today, we forget about it. Like Paul said, right? That's behind. And I'm moving forward. I'm following Jesus. That's the true sense of resilience.
Wow, that's to me, the good example or good definition of resilience, bouncing forward.
Yeah. And we get that strength and resilience through Jesus Christ. Each and every day he has to renew us and fill us. I love that. I love that. So we haven't talked much about cultural traditions as part of healing, which is so important in finding our identity and figuring out who we are after abuse and trauma. So in your materials, you talk about affirming belief or cultural traditions to build identity and affirmation. This is so important to me because I completely lost my identity after I got out of that 22-year marriage. I still don't know who I am. I struggle with it every day, but it's getting better. So can you expound on that?
So, before even my own trauma, I always talking about and teaching on the human being. We are human being, but we are living in a human doing society. My doing performance is more important than my identity and who I am. And especially if you are a trauma victim or survivor or a minority or suffered from historical trauma, you lost who you are, what makes you who you are. And without that identity, it's very hard to increase the resilience. If you have a strong sense of identity, then you can build up what we talked about, build up faith and hope and skill set, all the things what we're talking about. But identity is such an important thing. We learn from Jesus when Jesus was baptized that God didn't say, oh, this is my fantastic bishop or this is my amazing healer. He said, this is my son whom I love with, right? So we are all beloved children of God. When I do the weave and cleave movement, that this means we are open from every background, but we are cleaved from broken self to become beloved child of God without any condition. So that's very, very important in the beginning. If you cannot find any sense of identity, in this human world, but if you are in Christ, we have such a amazing, unshakable identity, which is we are children of God. And that's very, very important. And a lot of times we try to sense or make our identity based on our performance. But God is not about the performance, more about the distance. Let me tell you, Genesis chapter 3, when the first original sin and the fall happened, Adam and Eve, there was actually they did a fight flight kind of behavior. They were hiding behind the tree in the forest. God didn't ask, hello, what did you do? God asked, where are you?
Yeah.
But if you carefully read the scripture, it sounds like they answer as if they were asked, what did you do? Because they're very defensive. I didn't mean to do this. What matters to God is where are you? And Jesus said, my sheep knows my voice. they're gonna be where I am.
Yeah.
So my identity brings my intimacy. Okay. So am I a child? Then I need a father, right? Because a lot of times we think if I do this, my father gonna likes me.
Yeah.
If I do that, my father is gonna curse me. Well, punish me. That's without Jesus. But in Jesus, you need to really build up true identity that unconditionally loved because of his sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do know my identity.
Right. That's a strong foundation. So, the Lord is my God, whom shall I fear? But if you are in the performance and productivity mode, which is a lot of churches and Christians do, you still you're gonna be shaken because you have to be always do things right.
Yeah.
But true Jesus gospel is not about that. Actually, although you did wrong, although somebody did wrong to your life, although you're ashamed, right? You are accepted by Jesus.
Yeah.
Guilt is about doing, but shame is about identity, who I am.
Yeah.
On the cross, when Jesus said, it is finished, my guilt, my shame, the wage of sin is all finished. If we are truly restored as a children of God, then I have to know and practice no shame as well as no guilt in my life. That's a humongous power of resilience.
Yeah.
Children of God.
Yeah. And it's bringing Christ into your pain. I mean, a lot of times when I'm in pain, I'll try to pray that, I invite him into my pain because I know, it says he weeps with us. It's just that sense of he comes along and he helps me heal. And you talked about this already a little bit. Anything more you'd want to add about how important breathing and prayer is in healing trauma?
What I want to emphasize is that also, trauma-informed care is very countercultural because the culture asks us or pressure us, everything should be very fast and quick result, quick fix, and then mega impact. Trauma-informed care doesn't go like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be little tiny every day.
And
Sometimes
steady.
I feel like a totally setback and I feel like I'm hopeless, but still I'm going to be resilient.
Yeah.
So I want to say this, that you need to practice very patiently with a spirit of a perseverance. So don't expect that you're going to have an immediate impact when you try to breathing. No, you need to practice a lot so it can be your muscle memory. When the real re-traumatization or crisis happen, you cannot just get impact. Suddenly, that's the breathing, right? But it needs to be your lifestyle. That's why I say this is a discipleship journey. This is not just about healing or justice issue on the trauma healing. This is a discipleship journey because it's a long-term process. It must be lifestyle. You don't do this because of healing. You do this whether you feel healed or not. Okay. So the breathing, meditation, time with God, solitude, listening prayer, as well as putting your petition to God. That's not only way of a prayer. You need to listen. You need to spend time with God, your quiet time. All these things takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
So you cannot just say, I tried, but it doesn't work.
Right.
But I hope that you have more patience with it.
Those are part of my regulation in the morning. If I don't breathe, do my run and meditate and spend time with God, I'm totally dysregulated.
Yeah.
So it is very important discipline.
Me too. Yeah.
As soon as I fall out of that discipline, I'm dysregulated. So
Right. Me too.
yeah. And then we have more about breathing on some of our other podcasts and stuff like that. So we know that relationships and community help us heal. Part of your program, Communities of Belonging, is a substance use awareness and prevention training. Your material states, so the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. It is human connection. And you already mentioned this a little bit.
Right.
Why is connection so important?
Because actually our substance use or craving.
To be continued. Stay tuned for next week. You don't want to miss it.
Thanks for tuning in to Hanging On to Hope. Check out our website, hangingontohope.org. There are resources on there, and if you would like to donate or volunteer, you can do that through our website. We are a brand new nonprofit, so we appreciate any and all support. And we thank you for listening, and until next time, keep hanging on to hope. We are evidence that there is hope and healing for you, and our passion is to help you find it too. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening, everyone.